Only two things are forever: love and Liberty Mutual, customizing your car insurance so you only pay for what you need.
This is Webflow Interactions, the only tool that brings all the animation power of CSS and JavaScript.
Welcome, Daryl.
Hey, hello. Hey.
I'm so glad to see you.
Nice.
Just playing some smooth tunes and while we welcome people into the room.
Sounds good.
Getting ready to post it onto my social media again. So we'll get started in probably about 5 to 10 minutes and just get everybody a chance to come in. Would you shoot me a bio?
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Lead into the big link, the main link, right?
Hello, Discover Card here to explain our cashback match. We match all of the cashback you earn at the end of your first year, automatically. It's that simple. Discover, exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/.
change that view. Welcome, DJ.
Thank you.
So glad that you are here with us. There we go. Oh man. So so excited. Thank you, sir. Hold it up. Okay. Mr. Jackie. Yeah. Is this still for us? Welcome, Jay. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Glad to be here.
All right. I'm gonna try and do a really good job of spotlighting everybody when you're talking, but if I don't, I'm sorry. I try to stay on top of that. All right. Welcome everyone to our first Sunday open mic of the Black Poet Laureates from all over America. And that's what's awesome, is that Poet Laureates are African American all over the country and are making history. DJ and Jay, would you both do me a favor and just drop a bio in chat for me so that I can make sure I share yours when it's time? So this time together, we are going to share some poems, just have a little conversation, ask you guys some questions about your experiences and what you got going on as a poet laureate in your city. And people that are watching will also have the capacity to ask questions. So if any pop in to the YouTube channel, I'll ask you guys those as they come in. Cool. So, looks like I think we are good to go. And I like to just kind of ask the poets, because we've done it different every single month. Like, how do you guys feel? Do you want to do like a popcorn, like we just, popcorn around poems, or do you just want a solid 15 minutes to share? What are you feeling?
I'm open to whatever. You have a preference there?
I'm good with whatever else. Good breath.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I don't have 15 minutes, and I was here last time, so I'll read something for about 5 minutes.
Okay, we can just popcorn around and that works. I don't think I have 15 minutes of new stuff either, Daryl. But it's a good time. It's a good time to talk. DJ and Jay, you guys are new poet laureates, so I'm gonna let you guys kind of take the lead on this and be the first to share. So before you start, I'm going to go ahead and read this. Junius J. Ward is a poet and teaching artist from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a National Slam champion in 2018, an individual World Poetry Slam champion in 2019, author of Sing Me a Lesser Wound, Bull City Press 2020, and Charlotte's inaugural Poet Laureate. Jay currently serves as the program director for Breathe Inc., serves as vice chair on the board of the Watering Hole, and is part of several curatorial committees for arts events in Charlotte. Ward has attended Breadloaf Writers Conference, Callaloo, the Watering Hole, and Tin House Winter Workshop. His work can be found in Columbia Journal, Diagram, Four-Way Review, Diode Poetry Journal, and additionally on Button Poetry, All Deaf Poetry, and Slam Find. So without further ado, we are going to give the floor to Mr. Jay Ward. I am super excited, Jay. We have had, a wonderful pleasure of working together on Beyond the Spark. And I got to be there when you were crowned as the inaugural Poet Laureate of Charlotte, North Carolina. So this is just a great moment for me, just, knowing you. And so I am going to give you the floor, and I'm going to do this thing called a spotlight. And there you go, man.
Nice. I'm really, really happy to be here. Thanks, Ray, for putting this together. Hopefully, so I'm in a hotel in Myrtle Beach, so hopefully the Wi-Fi doesn't do too much here, but like signal me if it does. So I guess I'll get started with just one poem, and then I'll pass it off and see what happens after that. But my mom sent me a link recently to an article that was written about like the grandnephew of one of her previous boyfriends. And he is part of this legacy of a Black cotton gin owner that has kind of run through his family for about 3 generations. And it was a cool article to read, but it kind of reminded me of this, only in the aspect of it being about cotton, reminded me of this poem I wrote earlier. So I'll read that one. By the way, if you want to look it up on they have a website called Black Cotton, blackcotton.us, I think. All right, so the poem is called Homecoming, Rich Square, North Carolina. 1, Northern Black folk drive through my hometown and stop along the road to pick cotton, a drifted piece, something the machine skipped over. Feel the need to connect, honor ancestors by picking straight from the claw of the plant's mouth, seed and all. How thorny it feels, how it calls out blood like the Big Dipper sang a whole bloodline toward a lesser wound. How can anyone do this all day? I worked that field as a kid, only once. Burlap skin like thirsty hands during an annual event reminder for families in need of extra income. Come, the cotton gin called. Mighty fine job, sang Jackson Street from its own crescent mouth. How calloused these hands and strong this back, I dreamed. Tan this skin, eager this frame. A man, a bag of white gold taller than my dusty afro earned $8.58. A check that arrived 2 weeks later. Hell no, I never went back. 2, my mother-in-law had never seen a cotton field up close. This visit, she threw open the door before I even got to a good stop, went elbow deep and picked one tuft clean and good, nervous the landowner might see her working his soil and pick up a shotgun. Noticed the blood on her fingers, rubbed them pink, and was quiet the rest of the way home. So that's that poem.
Wow, fantastic. I love that. I grew up in Alabama, and so people stop by the side of the road and pick cotton all the time. When there we go. When you're in Alabama, they just stop. It's like a fascination. That took me back home.
Yeah, I mean, growing up with it, it's just there. So seeing other people kind of marvel at it and have this moment of connection over it was always weird to me in my younger years. I mean, I understand it better now, but when I was younger, it was a little weird.
Well, see, I was born in Detroit. So when we would go down to Alabama, it was always fascinating to me, and then we moved there when I was 9. So then I got to see it all the time. There's actually a cotton field right across the street from our house.
Well, I live in Santa Fe, but I'm actually from Georgia. So I've seen quite a lot of cotton myself, especially way back then. Yeah. Fields of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew some older people who used to pick it. They remembered. Yes. I once had a friend, well, here's a story, but this is true. I just always remember this. And he's dead now. And I asked him, well, somehow it came up that he had picked cotton when he was young. And I asked him what that was like. And what he did, he grabbed me by the neck and he bit my head down. And he says, that's what it's like all day long, because you're always bent over. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It is not easy work.
No, I could tell that. That was obvious. Yes.
And all those the thorns that are inside of the cotton is like crazy.
Where I'm from in central North Carolina, it's a little bit less cotton and more tobacco. There's tobacco fields everywhere in the town where I was born. And it's like the cash crop's the same, or cash crop's different, but the process in a lot of ways very much the same. It's just like work that's designed to break people. And it's a very sombering thought when you really come face to face with it.
I mean, as laureates, we're tasked with the job of, bringing poetry to our cities, but also as Black laureates, do you ever feel the pressure to bring the Black experience to your city as well?
Regardless of whether or not laureateship is involved with it, I think that as somebody who has any kind of presence in my city, particularly from an artistic context, yeah, I think I'm always feel that pressure of bringing and kind of opening a window to the Black experience so the people around me can understand. And I don't think that that's necessarily even, like I said, art before, but even thinking about it, I don't even know if that's necessarily an art thing or if that is one of the burdens of Blackness, particularly in America. Always trying to tell an accurate story because so many people are so invested in the story being inaccurately told and our characters being inaccurately portrayed.
Wow. It's not even art anymore. It's just our reality.
I was part of a panel discussion earlier, actually, it's like a week yesterday from tomorrow. And the question was like, when was the moment that you started like really focusing on your Blackness in your art? And for me, my answer was I went on tour because, in the spaces that I was familiar with performing, it was primarily Black spaces anyway when I was doing slam. But when I actually started touring, I was going to places that were majority white faces. And initially I had this moment of, wow, will they be able to connect with, I'm coming there talking about Willie Lynch. Like I'm coming in there with some Black stories. And it was first a decision that, yeah, they need to hear this even more so than the echo chamber that would normally hear it. So yeah, I'm gonna go all in. And then what I realized after that was they absolutely needed it. Just the energy during and after, it reinforced for me that regardless of who my audience is, they're going to benefit from this Blackness. They're going to benefit from the stories. They're going to benefit from this life, and they're going to benefit from the art. So yeah, I try to go completely full throttle in that way.
Well, I thank you. I talked about this a bit the last time, just because this is particularly exacerbated this question in my city, because it almost has no Black population, and it doesn't have even a history very much of Black, though it does, but it's a buried history. And so, yes, I write quite a lot about my Black experience, but the attitude, the response is different. I find this, that if it's about the civil rights era, this sort of things, the past, that's fine. That's fine. They're very open to that. When we get into poetry about Black Lives Matter, contemporary things, yes, you do sometimes get these reactions. Oh, well, what does this have to do with us? You know, what's this at? Well, we didn't do none of this. What would this have to do? You know, these very defensive sort of reactions. But that's a tricky one in Santa Fe, because it's a very artistic community which has its own history, which is, you know, very violent and very interesting. But in some ways, I mentioned this before, I'll just be brief. In some ways, that can actually be good, to even better to bring the Black experience, because there's so much of it that's similar to Indigenous and Hispanic history here, without directly invoking the tensions that exist here. There are a lot of tensions here about those even today, that it can actually at its best be a way of referencing those things without becoming overtly polemical in the way, because a lot of this whole city is about avoiding that conversation. But that's America too, except it's a slightly different conversation. A lot of this whole city is about avoiding that conversation.
Yeah, I think I struggled kind of with that question for a while, Jay. Just when did I allow my Blackness to truly show up in my poetry? I think early on, I wrote so that everybody in the audience would feel it, and not necessarily be put off by what I was writing. And but I still would kind of sneak it in there early on. Even I think about the very first piece that I wrote, I performed it on the radio one time, and a gentleman I had worked with for at least 5 summers, working with youth, he listened and then came into my email and told me, I didn't know you were a racist. And I was like, what? Like, you've been working with me for all this time and you know I'm not a racist. What is this coming from? And it was from the line in my poem that says, a white judge just put a Black boy in prison for the rest of his life, imprisoning not only his body, but also his mind. My soul cries out because the system won this time. Like, that was the line that he was talking about, because I talked about the fact that this judge had the power over a Black life and had put a little boy in prison. And he was like, I didn't know you were a racist. I was like, where did that come from? Like, did you listen to the whole poem? Like, I'm totally lost. So I would sneak it in there and talk about it. But I think I still did it in such a way that it made people comfortable enough to talk about it. And more recently, I just kind of got more unabashed about it. So it feels good. All right, DJ, you're up, man. DJ Rogers has been performing poetry since 2010. He is a founding member of the UNC Wordsmiths and helped coach the team since 2011 and has been a teaching artist since 2013. He's an educator, activist, and essayist in Durham, North Carolina, where he serves as the city's inaugural poet laureate. Amazing. I'm so excited to hear from you, DJ. And I love what you said the other day in our group when you were like, I got to stop letting Desan get me into things. Like, I absolutely love that our mentors get us into get us into these things, because mine was the same way. So welcome, the one and only DJ Rogers.
Thank you. So looking at kind of what we were talking about, subject matter just now, I wanted to present this one. So I have a lot of siblings, actually. I have over a dozen siblings, and several of them are white passing biracial. And I never really talked about that until I was an adult, and kind of the differences that our lived experiences had because we were perceived different ways by society. And so a few years back, I wrote this poem. It's called Imperial Order. I watch TV as the sun sets out the window, and I wonder how many of these days I have left. As a Black man, I have refined this click motion, sailing from evening news to evening news, stirring stories, black coffee with cream I did not ask for. White men in black ties sit upright like they are being hanged and give the shadows of the day their names. The Black man who was shot in the back is the Black man that saves an infant is an ex-convict. The Black boy killed over candy is the Black man surviving the hurricane is a looter. The Black boy killed the day before he leaves for college is the Black man who's choked out on the sidewalk is a repeat offender. The Black boy who loves anime is the white man who pulls out a gun at a movie theater is a Batman fan. The Black man who commits the crime is a mugshot. The white man who commits the exact same crime is a yearbook picture. The man who runs for president is mixed. The man who wins the presidency is Black. My brothers are mixed. My brothers are Black. My brother Nicholas is mixed, and the sun is still setting. Vestiges of the empire and the colony, how the colony stole our totems from all over this land and put them everywhere. How Black is treated like a privilege above ambiguity, how hard it is sold this way. White privilege, I think, is shunning your own people and getting to call that a compliment. It is making skin a test, giving points for passing. Nicholas passes. He is the white boy on the track team and the Black boy on the honor roll. Willie Lynch's dream. Code switching with markers in each hand. Look at his left, graffitiing with the Black kid, scribbling his name to the stomach of the high school, the proof he existed. With his right, he is drawing stars on white walls, a night sky in reverse, disappearing into the horizon he can see, but never, ever reach, as the color claims half of him for its own. And in the news, my brother is the Black boy who was not Trayvon Martin. Half of him was shot in the back, but the other half is just fine. It's lied on, but no one will believe, buried beneath the porcelain, half of him is like our father is. Half of him is like my grandfather, Roosevelt, grandmother, Annie Mae were, because it is buried, just like they are. History only remembers the graves that have markers. His books calls them workers now. I always think this is weird, because it is weird. He knows the half of his lineage cracked the whip and the other half got the scars, and this loud is where history is born. And even now, in this poem, I won't imagine how he feels. I can't. I'm less white than he is Black. I'm less him than he is me and his history teacher. God bless him, says he looks just like me. I want to tell him, when I was 4, I saw a burning cross on a farm in my hometown. My father owns that land now. He has always loved finding ways to make history love him back. And my brother knows. He knows about the fire. He knows the parts of it that lit him, that lit it, and he knows the parts of himself that won't burn.
Wow. That piece, so that piece, man, there is so much in there. And I love the lines. I put it in the chat where you said they stole our totems. And then you said the history only remembers the graves that have markers. And then I didn't even get to type this one where you said, you said he is more white than, or he is more like, or I am less like
He is
him and
more-
he is more like me.
Yeah, I am less white than he is black.
Yeah, there, man. Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I love the way that we are able to weave stories together, and present, you know, a beautiful, I say, present ugly as beautiful. So and a lot of times I said that in one of my poems, just to say like other things that when other people look at it, they're like, oh, that's tragic, that's bad. And then, as poets, we're able to find the beauty in it and present it to everybody so that they can take it in and it's palatable. I think that's what poetry does, is it makes hard things more palatable for everybody. Oh, wow. So one of the people was saying that her dad picked cotton upstate in South Carolina. So she knew somebody that was picking cotton. I know my stepfather picked cotton too. Wow. Okay. So I don't just want to, talk about our Blackness. It's a beautiful thing, but what other things are you guys doing in your cities to bring poetry to light, to connect with your communities, and what projects do y'all have going
Um,
Oh,
I'll,
so go ahead, Jay.
oh, go ahead, DJ.
Oh no, I'll let you begin and then I'll follow up.
Okay. So I've been poet laureate for like 2 months, and we don't have a lot of infrastructure here on like what that means and what they want from the position. And I've been asking for it, but I've resolved to the fact that I'm going to have to create it myself and pass that on to the next person. So I've been meeting with all the arts organizations here in Charlotte, and also like arts individuals, and like making connections and pairing people up. Because what I don't want to do, because I don't need to reinvent the wheel, like there's organizations here that are already doing amazing things. There's poets here that's doing amazing things. So if I can help amplify what they're doing, if I can help connect them with other folks, then that frees me up to do programs that aren't here yet. So like the university area of Charlotte, there's a committee there that's trying to make that area in Charlotte more arts focused. And so they wanted a committee to do that. So I kind of helped them seek out and find and form that committee so that they can attribute dollars into that area for the artistic place. I have some stuff that I haven't been able to announce yet because I'm getting the money finalized, because I have to find the money myself also. But I'm opening up a scholarship for the Watering Hole, so a writer from Charlotte can go to the Watering Hole for free. And I'm also putting together a fellowship for the year for a poet. So I'm combining organizations like Charlotte Lit, who does some good things here, Goodyear Arts, who does some good things here, West Trade Review, which is our local online trade journal. So the fellowship is going to include kind of scholarships to what they're doing, like a reading, a residency for a month at Goodyear Arts, some classes at Charlotte Lit, and a couple other things I want to attach to that, so that there's a fellowship program for that. And as soon as I can get the funding squared away, I'll announce a kind of professional development program that I'm doing for spoken word artists here. Just because I think spoken word artists, we don't get a chance a lot to have some kind of training and professional development. So I'm taking all the OGs in the poetry game here in Charlotte and kind of giving them like cipher style workshops where they can bounce off of each other. And I'll do that for 3 weeks with as many poets from Charlotte as I can. And then the fourth section of that will be an opportunity for 3 emerging poets to perform as a paid gig, because they'll learn not just how to write and perform better, but they'll also learn the business side of poetry. They'll also learn how to put a set together, how to entertain for 15 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on how long the set is. So at the end of that, we'll take one person who's never done any of that, allow them to, 3 people, allow them to put all those things together, and then have their first paid performance. So that's some of the low hanging fruit. I've got some big things, but I also have to wait for the big money since I have to get it myself. So.
And technically speaking, I've actually been polar Durham for 2 days. So as far as projects and ideas I have, I am still in the earlier phases of that. But with that being said, one of the big focuses that I had during the interview and application process was pertaining to how we as artists work as and affect change as change agents within our communities. So I am born and raised in the Triangle area of North Carolina. If y'all aren't all local or aren't from this area, I know one of you is from Santa Fe. It is probably one of the fastest growing areas for commerce in the United States and among one of the fastest growing in the world. But what that means is that often the people who are from here have very little in the way of representation and of storytelling. Durham in particular has a very rich history of Black business and Black prosperity that has been pushed to the margins because of gentrification. And working in the academic space, what else I have learned is that even though the demographics line up a certain way, the academic representation does not, nor does the artistic representation. And so with some of the funding that I will receive and more that I am raising, my goal is to begin arts programming specifically in low-income housing in the Durham area, of which there's 4 prominent low-income communities in the area that I want to partner with to do storytelling workshops, street art workshops, and connect with the multitude of resources that are around here. There's several awesome artist organizations, the St. Joseph's Historic Foundation, several individuals, the City Soul Arts in Raleigh, and the artistic entities at UNC Chapel Hill, Duke University, North Carolina Central, NC State, that have historically had at best an indifferent relationship to one another, and really connect them in order to create a net of artistic opportunity that we can then bring to our communities to help the communities be more arts focused and more focused on the people that are from here in the wake of their relative erasure next to all of the people that are coming in from out of the area. So within the next 2 years, for example, both Google and Apple are opening campuses in this area, which means hundreds of thousands of dollars and like thousands of jobs are going to be pouring in here, and it's going to do even more to make the community that already exists smaller. And so with my particular context as an artist, which is in education, I've been a classroom teacher for over 10 years, and teaching artistry as a poet, I want to leverage that to help show a side of these cities that is not portrayed, even though it absolutely and critically exists. There would be no Durham without poor Black folk, because that is who founded the city. The city had a very famous Black Wall Street that has been pushed out. And there's so much history here that is, I don't want to be one of those places that is only celebrated during February and on Juneteenth. And so that's my first project that I'm working on. And then on a more personal level, I am collaborating with a couple of artists to start creating documentation and material a textbook specifically to teach poetry and about poetry and make all that academic jargon accessible to people who want it and want to engage in the arts, but feel like it's too over their heads, which is something I've had a lot of conversations about as well.
Oh, wow. Can I jump in here?
Go for it.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, damn, I wish both of y'all the best of luck with all that. Y'all are way more ambitious than myself. I've been poet laureate for about a year, and I have another year to go. I do lots of workshops and lots of speaking, but I mean, the money that they give you is minimal now. And so I don't have a whole plan for transforming Santa Fe, which I suspect is very difficult to do for various reasons. I think it's a bit of a smaller city than you were talking than y'all's city, and it's already very artistic, which you would think would be an advantage, but it has a lot as a major institution, and I've been invited by many of them to come and speak, and I often do, and that's good for me. And I highlight other writers, and I have workshops. But no, I don't rivet massive crowds. No, I mean these workshops are attended by like 20 people at the most. So I think they're very good workshops, and I think the people who come get a lot out of them. But I can't say I have much of an ambition of riveting this whole place. As I say, there's almost no Black population in Santa Fe. So there's a large Hispanic population and an indigenous population and an Anglo population, that's what they call white people in Santa Fe, of which most of the artistic things, per usual, are heavily geared toward the Anglo community. They have all the money, they sponsor, they're the big funders, they're the big donors. Some of them who are uncomfortable even with my relatively mild talking about racism. At least I guess that's relative. But in terms of my personal outreach, it actually has gone well. I go to lots of elementary schools. People told me initially, well, elementary schools will be your best bet. But I found that was true simply because children are more open. And that's why I go to lots of them. But that's about all I know to say. But I'm looking forward to seeing these projects of yours. I'm the 6th poet laureate of this city, and in my city. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but everything you said was important. I mean, going to elementary schools is super important. I grew up in a really I shouldn't say a poor school, but like we were a very small town, so we didn't have a lot of funds, and the building had a lot of history, which is to say that it was shut down very shortly after I stopped going to school there. But like my elementary school education is where all my love for the arts and for teaching came in. I mean, for reading and writing came in, just because I had teachers and occasionally people that would come into the school that actually like riveted my attention that way. So like, first of all, the elementary schools is super important, and a lot of people might think it's easy to go into elementary school, and it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. No.
You gotta be right for it.
Not at all.
So many great things happening. I want to get in on some of that. So I said, definitely want to talk about like doing that professional development. I think that is something that we definitely need just for really like spoken word artists, which I'm finding that the majority of the Black poet laureates that are being named are performance, spoken word, have come from a slam background. And so they're bringing that to a whole nother level. And I know for me, I'm the 3rd poet laureate of my city, first African-American. And yeah, I think that I've done so much, it makes it hard for another person And I think that that's our job, is to like elevate the position so that the next person comes in and is like, dog, I have to do a lot of work, and to keep, elevating in that way. So for me, I got added another year because I started during COVID, which means that first year was everything I did was online. And then this last year, we were able to do a lot more and get out. And I actually got to meet the mayor. I think it had been a year. I had been poet laureate for almost a year before I even got to meet the mayor face to face because of COVID. And so, yeah, so I have one more year, and this next year is, we're amping it up. I did start our youth poet laureate program. So now we actually have a youth poet laureate in the city, and I'm helping her to really pull in more young people. So she's doing a library crawl, and I'm helping her with that. So she's picked 7 of the libraries from the city, and she will go there and we'll do poetry workshops there and create. I got this from Henry, who normally comes to these. Henry said he did a poetry in the libraries, and so we kind of stole that idea, and so we're going to have people create haikus at all of the libraries, and then the leaves we'll put them on leaves and start poetries in all of the libraries, so people can come through and create haikus.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
And I thought some of, oh, well, I'm good. Well, either you can go ahead or what. I want to talk some about my ambition when I do workshop, because because just to define myself a little bit. All right. Now, I have done slam and I have done performance poetry, but I don't regard myself as primarily a slam poet.
Mhm.
And when I do workshop, it's very much about turning people on to books, to literature,
Oh,
to
yeah.
literary history, to sitting down and studying things. This possibly is why they are not as well attended, but that's been true as of all the Santa Fe poet laureates, and it's true of me too. And when that goes well, I'm very happy about it, because that's what I do. Obviously, poetry is not, as much as they like to say so, it's not in everybody's backyard already. But the goal is to expand it as much as we can. Yeah, as much as we can. And I mean, there's a performance element that I've done, but in my classes, it is primarily about getting you to study poetry, which you can then take and adapt to your performance world. But that's what it's about. That's what I do. Um, I just wanted to put that in there.
I mean, yeah, I'll back that up too. So, although I kind of consider myself being on both sides of that fence.
I see myself like that too. A little bit more on the literary side, but it's not like I'm averse to performance poetry at all. But yeah, part of me is a little work, but I'm not only putting on a show here. The show is good, but I want to teach you how to read better than you already read. I want to get you to want to read better than you already read. That's part of it too. I'm not the same as Ray Charles or Prince or some singer and dancer. Though I love both of them, but that's not what I do. That's all.
Oh, no, I think I honestly, I hate that there has to be both sides. I spoke with Christian Collier. I don't know if you all know Christian. I spoke with Christian Collier on my podcast a few episodes ago, and we talked about how the title or the formation of spoken word really just became a category to put Black and brown poets in and separate them from that literary pathway. And so, like, I really don't like that, but I think that just as Black and brown poets, we automatically bring a different element of presentation. And that's what I meant when I said that a lot of the laureates now are spoken word or performance poets. I just think that we bring a different level when we're reading a poem than maybe some other literary people.
So
They
this,
have rappers in Santa Fe. They get way bigger crowds than I do. I wish they would come on. Some of those people would come on and see me. Go ahead, Jay.
yeah, I want to chime in on this. I think does too. I think I saw him reach for his mute button. But yeah, so for me, I refer to them separately sometimes just because it's easier. But I'm like super like when people start saying which is usually on the academic side when people start trying to draw the line between spoken word or slam and more literary canon, right? To me, like they treat it like it's a separate genre and people refer to it as a separate genre. And to me, it's not a separate genre. It's not a subgenre. Like it's all poetry. Poetry is poetry. And as much as people want to say it's hard to define, it's not that hard to define like poetry overall. But as far as a genre, I think a genre allows you to separate it. It allows you to say, this is something different. This is a subculture. It's something exclusive and separate. And really, I think it's more of a medium. Like when you have, if you just look at visual art, you might have the medium of a canvas, or you might have the medium of paper, or you might use charcoal, or you might use acrylic. And no matter and what you're using might require a different tool, and it might require a different skill set from the artist to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's going to say it's not visual art. They're not going to say it's a subgenre of visual art. It's all visual art. You really have access to the same perspective and to the same vision when you create it. Poetry, all of it, whether it's spoken word, slam, or literary or whatever, it draws from the exact same literary devices. And good writing is good writing, regardless of whether it's on the page or whether it's on the stage. It's all poetry. Now, are there differences? Absolutely. Sure there are. There's a difference between charcoal and acrylic, but that doesn't mean it's like some separate thing. Anyway, I'm probably on my soapbox.
I agree with all of that. And another thing that I like to get people to realize, we have this dichotomy. I'm not an academic, by the way. Other than this year, I've started teaching now. But I mean, I'm a journalist. That's what I've done for a living. But there's this idea that there are these, it's very American, that there are these like hardcore writers, non-literary writers who write about politics, but that's what they're real and raw. And then there are these academic or whatever fancy writers, literary writers who just write about pretty pictures and nothing of real significance. I've heard of John Paul Sartre. I've heard of these people. Well, they're these European, there's a whole tradition of European writers who were so political they got banned from their country sometime. They're quite sophisticated. I mean, they're quite knowledgeable, and you can too. My thing is popularizing your own capacity for knowledge. Whether you have a PhD or a high school diploma, you have a public library, and you can use it, and that's my thing. And I agree totally with, although that good writing is good writing. There's so-called Patricia Smith, just to take an example. She started out as a slam poet, so-called. She's a great poet, in my opinion. These distinctions are meaningless, but I do always want to push people toward what I think of as profundity. Go deeper with your writing, go deeper. I do. Because I see people who, to me, they primarily are about putting on only a show. Now, this is not me, and it's not going to be me. So that's all I'm going to say. That's all.
And I 100% back all of that. And it's like you're saying, Jay, like it's not a different genre, it's a style. Like I had an interview the other day where I said something similar to this. Like if you were to watch a movie that John Singleton made versus a movie that Stanley Kubrick made, you would not say that those weren't both movies, even though they're wildly different in their stylistics, because they're very different directors. Like John Singleton's never going to make like 2001: A Space Odyssey, or Francis Ford Coppola is never going to make the Fast and the Furious movies. Like they're not the same people doing the same thing, even though it is the same art form. To say that spoken word is something othered is to say that the people in it are othered. And as with everything in this country, if we're being completely honest. That's done for a reason. What I've learned in, like, as an educator, when I say educator, I don't mean like college professor. I taught the 8th grade for 10 years. Like, I'm working with 13-year-olds. And what I see often is that when certain things are put into certain categories, they're meant to not be taken as seriously. I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill, an excellent and extremely white university. And what I learned in studying poetry there was just how different education is and what various kinds of academic think is or isn't an important part of or part of at all the literary canon. Like, it is completely inconceivable to me that somebody would not think of Patricia Smith, for example, as a poet.
Well, she
Danette
is
Smith,
now.
Rachel
Once it
McKibbins,
started off, you know.
Saul Williams, any number of absolutely incredible writers who got their start in or who predominantly worked in slam. And I know I'm naming examples of poets who have been heavily featured in the academic sphere for a long time, but also think of poets like Hanif Abdurraqib, who is a contemporary poet and essayist who is a currently sitting MacArthur Genius Grant recipient. And I think that, especially when engaging with Black laureates, you will see a lot of crossover with performance, because that was a lot of marginalized people's access to poetry. And this dates back, I'm definitely not going to jump on a soapbox here because I want to teach one of my classes, but like, it dates back 100 years to the Harlem Renaissance, to the speakeasy, to prohibition, to all these ways. And then goes back even further to the access of marginalized people, Black people, Latinx people, Indigenous people, and access to basic academic foundations like literacy. Poetry is the same as writing novels or shorts or essays, in that it is an answer to the question of, how am I going to tell this story? And a lot of people talk about poetry as something that's nebulous and hard to define, when in reality, it is a way of telling the story that trusts the audience to follow the image that is created by what is being written or what is being said. And I think that what that allows poetry to do that some other formats can't is that it allows it to be much more broadly accessible. We tell a story, what is the, like, well, when I was in the interview, I was like, when you tell a story, you're primarily telling a beginning, middle, and end. Realistically, those can be 1 to 2 sentences each. Anything else, you're building around it to make it look prettier and to make it more palatable, right? Poetry is a way that one can do that, and it doesn't always look like that obviously, but that's what it is. And the reason why it is such an important and prominent art form and remains one is that it is very good at doing that. Not just because it allows people to understand a story, but it allows people to tell one. Poetry, more than any other art I've ever seen, is the art where I've seen people, one, be like, I absolutely cannot do this. Just straight up refuse. Like, I'm not a poet. I'm not going to. But on the complete opposite token, say that they absolutely can. And just jump up and be ready to do it just without any hesitation. And it's interesting to me that it's that polarized, but also I think that is what makes it such a long-lasting art form within our society, is that it feels very accessible to people, especially in my experience, people to whom other kinds of writing or reading or storytelling may not necessarily feel accessible. And as a last point, I'm not going to get into this because it would double the length of this conversation, but there's also poetry's connection stylistically to music. And music is one of those universal things. And so I once had a kid who was 6 years old who told me that poetry was like music writing. And I've always kept that with me because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then 20 years down the line, I was like, you know what? That makes perfect sense. I don't know where it flipped over, but it's really true.
Well, I think that amongst people who know poetry and who read it and go see it and listen to it, they understand that these distinctions have already been broken down. They were broken down decades ago, insofar as they ever existed. But in the minds of many audiences and especially many funders, they haven't gotten that yet. They don't gotten that yet. I do make distinctions. I make distinctions between what's deep, thoughtful, and what's slight. You know, and I do think whatever type poetry you write, you can possibly write better poetry, including me. And so, in that sense, I make qualitative distinctions, but they're not based on whatever style or just like no matter what subject matter, whether you write about, nature or flowers or racism. Anyway, can I read a poem before we finish up?
That's exactly what I was about to ask, girl, is would you share a poem with us?
Sure. Here, because in keeping with a theme we covered a bit before, I'll read this poem, and it's called How to Live with Racism in Times Like These. And it's in two parts. And the first part is more or less a statement of the problem, and the other one attempts a solution, which of course is impossible. How to live with racism in times like these. Become used to the feeling at all times that the flesh, flagellated, feverish puffiness, in particular the poignant places where the vertebrae curves, is melting to angst gone to crap. Study the stool, such daily craps, like a horoscope synchronized to feelings, how functional systems midway curve until past internalized bile mulches flesh, pours into the heartfelt places, susceptible to psychosomatic illness, puffiness. Practice using herbs and lotions. Puffiness calcifies the skin's breath. Asthma is crap, still psychically undigested. Benign places where you suffer sudden stress, feeling an atavistic stiffness. Hammer flesh to an ancient bone, and a bad back curves. Negative socialization stymies sleep, curves Sally to crip walk, toothsomeness to puffiness, self-enfolding lumps of riddled flesh, bulk beneath shy lids, sleeps a crapshoot in a puzzled welter, feelings stiffen like chess pawns in the wrong places. Acknowledge the health burdens, angst places, in between dollar and the daily curves. Murphy's Law, throwing sobriety to feeling if judgment intervenes. Hives, cancer, puffiness. The apocalypse's four horsemen coming crap all over a calm facade. Death is inherent in the flesh. And death's mode in bad times is bruised flesh, softening slowly in the wrong places. Listless fatigue leaves shit, crust, crap, putrefying the toilet rim. Meals skipped, curveball, self-implode memory. Sock sacrifice, puffiness is generic putty. Enthusiasm low, no feeling. Part 2. Cut the crap, feed the flesh, avoid blackouts, because honestly speaking, there's sudden relief. Taking a breather allows one-shot self-analysis. less urgent care than homing in on memory lapses. Finish tasks, scrub the tub, walk the dog, tip the jar, round the curves, round the curves. Struggle with memory against forgetting to see. Eye strain, a feeling of puffiness in places. Beware. Struggle with memory against forgetting to flush. There you go. You know,
Thank you. I said there was such powerful imagery in there. At one point I was just like your words were so powerful I could smell the stench. I was like, ugh, that's nasty. I thought that was fantastically powerful. Well, we are winding down our hour, and I do have one question that came through on YouTube from a storyteller here in Tennessee, and I wanted to know, how do you build relationships with partners? And do you have experience with poetry arts? And I'm thinking, Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking you're talking about like ekphrastic poetry, like doing poetry driven by experiencing other art forms. And you can drop that in the chat. I mean, not in the chat, but in the YouTube, if that's what you're talking about. But how do you build relationships with partners? And do you have experience with poetry arts?
So if I'm reading it right, I think she asked if they have experience with poetry arts. So the way I'm reading it is meaning the partnership, the relationships that you build.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes the question make a whole lot more sense to me. Thank you, Jay.
I'll start because that's really been my whole methodology so far, has just been trying to build those partnerships. And part of it is there are partnerships that I already have, like I already know some of the arts organizations in the city. And then the ones I don't know, I've heard about. And the ones I haven't heard about, I've also Googled and just see like who's doing what in the city. And then my first 3 weeks was just sending out emails to everybody. Even if I knew them already, I sent them an official email. But if I didn't know them, I sent them an email to the library, to every museum, to every arts organization that I'm familiar with, to the prison, because I want to start a prison program. So like my first 3 weeks was just literally sending out emails to everybody saying who I was and what I wanted to do. And then from those emails, I've had meetings, and from those meetings, it's been, hey, what do you do? What do you want to do? How can I help? So I don't necessarily pitch a program to everybody that I talk to. The first thing I do is what are you doing, and how can I help? And if I can't help, do I know somebody that can help? So then I'm trying to build a partnership and to build ways to bring other people in. If somebody wants to do something educationally, I know what I can do educationally, but I also know other people that can do things either better than me or like a specific thing better than me, and I'll try to connect them. And then that way, when I start having the questions about things that I specifically want to do, I'm kind of already in that vein. But then the thing is, like, how big are they, and do they have money to do it themselves? Some of them want to do stuff but don't have the money, and then we have to go somewhere else and try to find the money. But if they have money themselves, that's something that you can work with them to do and kind of work on what the budget would look like. Hopefully that answers part of the question.
I think I do the same. I send out a ton of emails. I think it's like every 6 months they do, it's called Leadership Knoxville. And I go and I speak to that class. So they graduate a class, And what they are is the influential people in Knoxville go through this, process where they have to learn all about the city and how can they be involved and those type of things. And so I go there and I make those connections there with all different types of businesses, real estate and arts organizations and history. The libraries, they always send people there. And so I've been able to make a lot of connections just through the Leadership Knoxville program, but they do Leadership Knoxville, then they do Introduction Knoxville, and then they do Youth Leadership Knoxville. So I'm able to make a lot of connections just through that one partnership that I have. And that just kind of happened. They asked me to come speak, and then they loved me and kept asking me to come every time they had a class. So that was just kind of organic. And then the other ones, I've just been very purposeful about sending an email and asking, I partner with the East Tennessee fair that comes every year to our city. And hopefully this next fair will be able to have poetry performances and poetry readings at the fair. So people will go to the fair and be able to hear some of our local poets there. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's kind of how I do those partnerships. All right, well, it's about time for us to go. And I have a new poem that I'd like to share, and it is not about the Black experience. Kelly did say, Daryl, thank you for sharing. I can see how your poetry is an exercise in interpreting language. Okay, y'all, I'm not sure why my mom is calling back to back like that. Okay, so I'm gonna read my new poem and then we'll be done. But like I said, this is not about the Black experience, it's just about my experience, which I tend to do. I was gonna read one that I did for Juneteenth, but I changed my mind. This is called The World is His Drum. I have run from this beat for long enough. A poem 11 years in the making, blocked by a diagnosis of lesions on the brain. It scares me to think that I am a teacher, but I do not have all of the answers. I study math, but I do not have all of the solutions. When I cannot see past the moment to understand what he is thinking, I feel helpless and lacking. He was born on my birthday, 33 years after I was. Stole the rumble in my voice with brown eyes and hands reaching out toward heaven. I called them his poetry hands. Didn't know he was reaching for a song that planted itself in his spirit long before I would ever hear it. He was 6 months old with a smile that melted my heart when he decided to speak in a language only he could understand. Perfect rhythm on his high chair. The spoon and the tray became his first snare drum. Later, my bowls and plates would be the set he practiced perfection on. I noticed that he could be in a room full of people and all he heard was the blast beats, tapped out cadences on Legos and cars when other children wanted to play. I knew he was different, but it was hard for everyone to hear his beautiful mind. There were signs creating a score for his story. The backbeat wouldn't stop, pulling his attention away from everything the educational system thought should have his focus, led them to test and see what we had known all along. He was a genius, and the world wasn't ready for his song. Autism spectrum disorder is a diversity not even I fully understand. I just know that hiding in the crash is his safe place, and sometimes he runs away to find it. He is all in and all out with common time, focused on or focused off, with the dynamics of greatness more acoustic than digital, more like me than I am often willing to admit. There are days when being his mother is everything I need to know that God loves me. There are days when I only wish that I could stop the fatback he hears long enough for him to hear the tapping of voice on his heart. And still days when I wish I could listen to his solo and drown out the noise of life around me. It is simple for him. A flam that only he hears, a beat that only he is dancing to. I am trying to teach him safety, but he is teaching me life, silently instructing the world to be unique and celebrate. He dances to music like something is taking over his body, unafraid to be different. He speaks to people even when they don't speak back. He never lets it slow the music he hears. They just become a break in the beat that he pops and locks his way through. He loves without question and forgives with no grudges. Everybody is a potential friend, and when they don't respond to his invite, he is quick to let me know that it is their loss. He never has a bad day. No matter what has happened, when you ask him how his day was, he says it was great, and I know he's had some hard ones. I've been there for the days when nothing goes the way he planned, and he struggles to find words to make it make sense, but it always makes sense on the drum. I never wanted to be a mother until he came along. It is the best job I never applied for. I try to always tell him that he is an awesome son. He says that I am an awesome mom in response, but I don't always believe him because I don't always have the answers. I teach math, but don't always have the solutions. I cannot always find the lyrics for his melody or understand the why behind the scratch in his record. Being his mother has taught me that it is okay to not be the best every day. There is no problem to solve here, only another day to practice getting it right. And even when I don't, there is a melody in my heart keeping the tempo, and he will always be there to ride that beat. Shaka, you slid in here, man. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Good, I'm good. I'm finally off the road. How are you, Laureates? Good, good, good.
Good.
All right. Jay Ward, I ain't seen you in a minute, man.
Good to see you, bro.
Mhm.
How you been?
Good, good, good. Just here in the struggle.
Just here in the struggle. Gotta love it. Oh man. Well, thank you guys for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing. It was great.
Yeah, I tried to slam that piece. It didn't go very well. I went over. I got like a 3-point time penalty. I got a dirty 30, and then it turned into a 27 time penalty. I started crying in the middle of the poem and everything. It's all bad. Oh man. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you. Okay, so one more thing, I do want to make sure you guys see this. Kelly Jolly is there, and she says you do have to make partners aware of what your role is and what you can offer. You have to advocate for your art form in non-traditional ways. And then she said, thanks everyone. So thank you guys. Shaka, you got in here right at the tail end, but we got 4 minutes. So if you want to share a piece, you are welcome. Or
Yeah, okay. Is that all right?
yeah, of course.
4 minutes. Let me try and get through this. Okay, so piece recently written, and I'm still working through it, called Agency and Religion. The dictionary defines agency as the sense of intending and executing actions, including the feeling of controlling one's own body movements and through them events in the external environment. The dictionary also describes religion as a personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices. In the Bible, Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1 and 7 of the King James Version, to everything there is a season and a time, to every purpose under the heaven, verse 7, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. Freedom to speak, that is. To practice in worship, that is double-edged in testament, that is why the scripture feels sometimes like the blood of Christ evaporated into a Gemini's horoscope, splitting atoms with its other face. When we speak of the Bible, that is the same as what was being used as a justification for slavery. That is right, no? So testimony, so-called testimony, can be kin to opposites. Guess everyone's got a Cain and able to use it to unhinge the sin from the sweet lash that ate at the rippled maple leaking from their skin in that moment, that is flesh bruised by revelations, that is the word of God speaking lessons through your gospel about life. But what's life when life can be found in your unrescued mouth? Some of y'all ain't gonna like this. Remind me, when you call for the control of your own body, why do your limbs respond in its master's language This is the has-been for those of the scorched skin and woolen hair. This is where the seed weeds as soon as it breaks ground. Here is where men are the agency's great agent of complacency around the how he can destroy his own flesh. That is yesterday, according to scripture, and today, that is repetition in verse. That is, in other words, Cain enabling in present time. How men can eat men through their mother's mouth without remorse is the blueprint of a ripped throat from its own breath. Texas, you cannot breathe in a vacuum, sir. A lone star does not a constellation make. The serpent has a starring role in all the scriptures we scroll into righteousness, and we've seen the words fold into right angles, a triggered mechanism in perpetuity of the hollowing of the earth's soul, just enough so to echo the fleeting human in its distant screams, yet all the while, human is busy looking for their pronouns in the eulogy of their great-grandmother's great-grandparents' clenched teeth. That is to say, our identity is relative. That is the far away seen in the rear view mirror. The collision is closer than you think. Some of y'all ain't gonna like this. Remind me again how the call for the control of your own body transports limbs to respond in its mastered language. That is to say, in a cul-de-sac heart. Our humanity weeps, a rivered fallopian, spreading itself into places nature has already claimed since Palestine owned itself. See, some of y'all ain't gonna like this, but this is rehearsal for a fickle constitution written in Hail Marys and hymns, stars and stripes, worship and symbolism that is sign, rapture without the PR, just the sig and nature, a collection of signatures and constitution. That is to say, we are American due to signature, human due to signature, alive due to signature, decided by men who reverse engineer compassion into currency and law, and then minted, emancipated signature. That is to say, when the time comes to rend and sow and keep silence, is it in God we trust, or is it a call for the control of your body to respond in its own language? Some of y'all ain't gonna like this, but as has been mentioned on many an occasion, the good book says there's a time to keep silence and a time to speak. It's that. I rushed through that a little bit, but we only have 4 minutes.
Yes, sir. I love that new piece.
You.
I tell you, every time you read, I'm always like, dang, I gotta go write again.
Stop it.
I am, because I think it was the last time that you were on here, you did the poem to your daughter.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's why I wrote the poem that I just finished, the one to my son. Yeah, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and write this poem. I've been running from this poem for years, and I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna write this poem for my baby. And so, yeah, I appreciate that every time. Like I said, you just make me want to be like, okay, I'm going back in the lab, and write something new.
That's why we all here, right? We just feed
I
off
love it. Well, thank each one of you gentlemen for taking time with me today. I love doing these first Sundays because I get to meet poets from all over the country that I never would have met before. So I'm thankful for that. Don't forget to make sure that you submit your form so I can put you into the Black Poet Laureate directory if you haven't done that already. And if you would like to be a part of the anthology, go ahead and get in on that anthology as well, because that's going to be good stuff. There's never been an anthology of Black Poet Laureates, so we are going to be the first one to do this. It's exciting and a lot of work.
Yeah, I apologize for asking this question. I feel like I've seen something about it and don't know everything about it. So this is previously published or new?
Yes. It is. We want to be able to give every poet between 5 and 7 pages. So you're going to turn in a picture, your bio, and 5 to 7 pages of poetry.
Okay.
It could be
Is there a deadline on that?
Huh?
Is there a deadline on that?
As soon as possible. We're going to try and have it out in 2022. So I haven't set like a hard deadline, but as many people as we can get turning their stuff in now, then I don't have to beg, borrow, plead, and offer up all kinds of stuff later to get the book filled up. We want to have at least 25 poets in it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, thank you guys again. Hey, I really, really would love to have everybody on this call on my podcast. So, let me know. I am a school teacher, much like DJ. DJ, what do you teach? You must teach English. I don't teach English. I teach math. But oh,
I just teach English now. I also am an instructional coach, so I'm a teacher trainer, and I also used to teach history.
oh wow. Yeah, two things I have never been good at, but I'm trying to be better. Especially the history.
Yeah, can I do a quick promo? Just because it's going to involve all of y'all at some point. I have I have a show that I put on mostly monthly. It's called Beautiful Black Books, and we interview poets and writers to introduce their books. It's really about sort of digging behind, the artists. We always go on stage, we do our 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then we walk away. Folks don't really get that chance to understand the inspiration, the things behind us, all those things. And so it's an hour and a half of us just chatting and performing as well, but questions from all over the place. So I will be reaching out to everyone sooner or later to hopefully be part of this and let the world see how amazing you all are. So yeah, that's my
I'll come on your show.
huh?
I want to come on your show.
Oh, indeed, yeah. Like I said, you're gonna start seeing the invites pretty soon. Like Rhea said was saying, it's a lot of work, so
It is.
it takes time. But
I've been doing
yeah,
a podcast now for 3 months. Yeah, I just put out episode 6. So it's been 3 months and it is so much work, but I love it because it's much like yours. We talk about like, when did you first, what's your first memory of writing a poem or hearing poetry? And when you talk about just life and where does it come from and what's your inspiration? It's not about reading. I think I have every poet read at least one poem, but we just talk.
yeah,
Just
yeah, exactly.
have a good dialogue. Some great gems have come out. I know I just talked to Shane Manier from Charlotte on this last episode, and I was like, I got to go back and listen to this episode again because such good stuff came out, and I'll go listen to it again. And I was in the conversation, so yeah, absolutely. I will be reaching out. Want all of you to participate, just like Shaka, and we're gonna get it. We're gonna get you some more people coming out to your workshops, Daryl.
Mhm.
That's part of what I want to talk about. There's all sorts I wasn't able to go into. There was all sorts I wasn't able to go into here. That would involve a longer conversation about the politics of this city.
Oh, politics. Ooh.
Mm.
But
A whole nother
it's in
person.
there. That's what happens when you take on a political position, whether they want it to be or not. So congrats to Jay and DJ. Hope that your tenure as a poet laureate is everything that you want it to be. Transforming your city. Daryl, good luck on your next year. And I'll see you guys next month. At
Indeed.
least,
Let us know how we can help.
Oh, absolutely. I will. I'm not good. My executive assistant, she told me, she said, you are horrible at saying you need help. She's like, you just do stuff, everything on your own. So I'm learning. Like,
Yeah.
she checked me just this last couple of weeks when we were at Bonnaroo. She said, we don't know how to help you because you never say what you need help with. So I'm doing better. Shaka. I'm saying when I need help. So yes, I will tell you when I need some help.
Cool.
All right. I'll see you guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
How about you?
All right, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for watching this month's Black Poet Laureates first Sunday open mic and conversation. I look forward to seeing you all again at the next one. And tell a friend, because it's great conversations and we definitely want to share with the world the wonderful